Good morning, good morning. Welcome to the replay of my birthday Q&A and mailbag about memory improvement and all that stuff. So if you're watching this replay, hit the thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed to this channel, subscribe because we do lives relatively well once in a while. And also there's more video trainings coming with all kinds of cool things to say. Anyway, one of the things to discuss today is the new podcast, my birthday podcast. If you're hopping on live, say hello, let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, and we're going to go through some emails that I've prepared to answer some questions, and also any questions that you have on the live while we're here. Otherwise, next time. Anyway, so yeah, it's my 41st birthday right now, and also tomorrow will be my 41st birthday, I think, because I was born in North America and I'm in Australia right now, so is it my birthday or isn't it? Or do I get two? Anyway, you let me know what your opinion is on that. But the podcast this week, coming out a bit early, is 4.1 Painful Life Mistakes Burned into My Memory and How to Avoid Them. Because I had a great life, but made lots of mistakes. And let's check in here. Rational Muslim Man is here. Hey, how are you doing? ATL. I don't know what ATL means, but thanks for saying hello. And I love rational people, so thank you for being rational. And I'd love to learn more about that because there are not enough rational people in the world, and I love rationalism. Oh, Atlanta. Okay, great. Thank you. I've never been to Atlanta, but I want to go there. Thanks for saying hello. And if you're hopping on this live, let me know where you are in the world. Anyway, this week's podcast, 4.1 Painful Life Mistakes Burned into Memory, How to Avoid Them. Harold's here. Hi, happy birthday. Thanks, Harold. Thanks for saying that, and thanks for saying hello. Let me know where you are. Just to quickly go through these, you can go in depth on the podcast at magneticmemorymethod.com, and it's life-mistakes. So magneticmemorymethod.com /life-mistakes. And the live version here right now is, the first one is you can't make other people happy, no matter how much you try. And I know you can't do it because I tried it many, many times. And again, that's all on the podcast, the ins and outs of that, and some advice about understanding what happiness actually really is, so that you can stop avoiding that, and a little bit of the context with brain exercises and so forth. So when I set up the replay, the link for that will be down below. The second one is that really, I wish I would have learned this earlier, but you always have all the resources that you need, and scarcity is a real problem. Because if you have a scarcity mindset, you close off potential options, and it might not be what you want, but you definitely have what you need in order to take action. So there's some stuff about that, and I give you the else exercise, and the else exercise is really powerful for making sure that you have tapped all possible potential avenues for action that you have, but you might not be aware that you have. And then there's a really empowering secret there from Kafka about why that is true, that you can learn from. And then the third one is that there's no such thing as free. And so I talk about the mistakes that are made around that, and how you can find a quest, or you can complete the quest between the balance for online learning and offline learning, and what free really means in education, and how not to fall into the traps of free, because we're hunter-gatherers in our deep genetics, and we're constantly hoarding stuff, and there's a way to avoid that trap. And then the fourth one is that there's no such thing as failure, and I wish that I'd learned that earlier. And then the last one is about meditation, the 4.1. So that's there for you. But what I really wanted to do was some mailbag stuff. So let me know if you're hopping on the live, and hit that thumbs up. Always, you can post in the discussion if you happen to have missed the live. But the thing that I've been doing a lot is to survey people to figure out what's frustrating them with their memory. So this one is from Kayla, and she says she is frustrated that she tends to forget quickly. She's the kind of person who can watch a movie again after a few years and has forgotten even the ending, and usually forgets the details of life experience. And then she says, the only thing that is left is some vague sense of the feelings that I got. She says, I checked Joshua Forrest's TED Talk about memory palaces, and in the end he sums up nicely how our lives are the sum of our memories. If I can't remember my life, then what have I lived for? And yeah, that's an interesting question, and it is the question that we talk a lot about, is that if you can't remember what you did in your life, then that can lead to a lot of depression and suffering, because we are not the summaries of our memory just now, but we are the sum of our memory in the future. So we know that there are these problems with dementia and Alzheimer's and so forth that really, they're destroying so many lives. And there is one way that is foolproof, bulletproof, and sure to make your life better, even if Alzheimer's and dementia were to happen to you, and that is to live a life worth remembering. Live a life that has optimal memory now, so that you do remember the things worth remembering. And then, if you have the misfortune of these things, not only will you at least have had a great life leading up to it, but people probably, my prediction is, will be much more likely to take care of you properly, because you lived such a profound and happy life. Julie's here. Hi Julie, thanks for saying hello. In California, if you are joining this live, hit the thumbs up and let me know where you are. We've got lots going on with the mailbag today, and Julian, just to catch up quickly, we're talking about some of the frustrations that people have with their memory, and the idea of, as Kayla here writes, if I can't remember my life, then what have I lived for? Very, very profound and important question. Anyway, she carries on. Because of my inadequate memory, I usually concentrate on the here and now and do not take part in activities that require memorization. One concrete thing I'm going to use the Memory Palace for is learning the Japanese kanji. It has been a project of mine which I began and quit over and over again. I feel that this technique might actually help get me to kanji mastery before I end up quitting again. Great. Well, so Kayla, the thing to do is to definitely check out the podcast episode with Kevin Richardson and how he used the magnetic memory method to just build up to 30 kanji readings a day. And it's something that he actually gave up on himself in the beginning, and you don't have to. So I'll make sure that you get that link. But it is an amazing thing when you realize, I don't have to give up on this. And if I do incremental daily activities, I will get there. So, the last live we did was about the Freedom Journal, and I'm sticking with it, and I've got my Chinese here. I'm not strictly going through this, but going through it and just showing up every day, developing, working, going along, and having a lot of fun as a result. And it's cool to have a guide as you go along. So definitely you can do that, Kayla, and I appreciate the question. And you do want to hear this interview with Kevin Richardson, because man, he just blasts through so much kanji once that he understood it. So that was one email, and let's go through another one. By the way, if you're on this live and you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat, and we will discuss what you want to discuss on my happy birthday live session here. So this is from Olivier. What a great name, Olivier. He says, what frustrates me about my memory is not remembering simple things or what I read. I'm still unsure about how I'll be able to use a memory palace, but that's why I've got the magnetic memory method, hoping to find techniques that will help me. Great. Well, the first thing to say here is that remembering what you read is something where you do need to intervene. So like Kayla was saying, she lives in the now and doesn't stop to actually use the techniques. And so there's the answer, the clue, or to the answer to the question is in the question itself. If you're not stopping to pause and use the techniques, then you need a strategy that's going to stop you and get you to pause and use the techniques. And in terms of reading and then remembering what you read, one of the things that you can do is just simply actually have a memory palace created before that you sit down to a book, and actually potentially have a number of memory palaces created. So if you were going to read The Memory Connection, for example, you might count how many chapters it has before you get started, and then make a memory palace for each chapter, and just decide how many points you're going to memorize, and possibly even have those points down on some handy dandy index cards, and then use those index cards as your in parallel with your magnetic stations in the memory palaces. And then when you come to a point, stop, pause, actually create the mnemonic imagery that you're going to use right then, and the information itself, have it all wound together with the memory palace that's already created, and then go back and test yourself at the end. What was there? What happened there in that memory palace? And you'll have gotten a number of things going for yourself at the same time. So this is how I like to read, and I'm able to remember a lot of information as a result. And then in terms of Olivier not knowing about how he'll be able to use a memory palace, one of the things that's taught in the memory connection is how to figure out what it is that you actually might want to use memory techniques for, not just memory palaces, but memory techniques as such, because it is sometimes, oh, what am I going to use this for? And you don't necessarily see all the options, and it maybe is because you haven't dug deep enough into your passions and your interests. And the trick is to figure out what it is that's going to make the biggest impact, the biggest bang for your buck, the thing that's going to actually improve your life like that. Because one of the things I'm talking about on my birthday podcast this year is the thing, this piece of advice that I really don't like, which is fail often. Fail fast and fail often. I don't really agree with that, actually. The thing is that you could easily flip that on its head and succeed fast and succeed often, right? But you need to figure out what your learning modalities are, what you're good at, and how you're good at it, and what your sensory preferences are, and all of that is talked about at length and in detail in the memory connection. So that's there for you if you're interested. But yeah, I mean, everybody has their own sort of adventure in figuring that out, and if you need assistance, then it's there for you. Now, Kevin writes, I get so much email and I don't do enough mailbags, so let me know if you find this interesting to hear about other people's stuff that they are talking about, and we can do it more often. So Kevin writes, it's been less than a week and I find your work to be really interesting, and I'm wondering, as I've gone through the introductory material, about using an alphabet for each memory palace. Will a closed, isolated place like a cottage in the middle of nowhere with, let's say, 15 stations be enough for a memory palace? Will I need to expand that memory palace in the future? Should I prepare myself for a palace that can be extended instead? Alright, so Kevin, lots of questions here, but a cottage in the middle of nowhere, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with isolated memory palaces, and you'll learn how to maximize even the smallest space, and in many cases the smallest space is the best space. 15 magnetic stations, no problem. That can be too many or too little, but it's probably just about right. It depends how you configure it. So if you're watching this and you don't have the free memory course, go to magneticmemorymethod.com/YT, and you can register for that, and then it'll show you how to properly make the memory palace. And then of course there's a practice that you develop over time, a style that you develop, and when you have the fundamental foundations and the guidelines, you'll be able to do that. Hu's here. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that, but Hu from Vietnam. Good to meet you here. Thanks for saying hello. If you're joining us on the live, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world. We're doing some mailbag and some questions. And so, yeah, a cottage in the middle of nowhere is no problem. Then the question is, will 15 magnetic stations be enough for a memory palace? Should be, yes. And will I need to expand the memory palace in the future? Should I prepare myself for a palace that can be extended instead? Now, I did the experiments on this before, and expanding inside of memory palaces doesn't really pay off in the end. Making new memory palaces ultimately pays off in the end, and adding on to memory palaces can work, but in the March issue of the Magnetic Memory Method newsletter that is part of the Memory Connection, we're going to talk about mega memory palaces and how to do it properly if you're going to do mega memory palaces, and ultimately it comes down to multiple memory palaces. And you can do a lot of things but they're really intermediate and advanced things, and so the basics are probably better. But looking forward, imagine you have your cottage, Kevin, as you're talking about in the woods or whatever. Well, there's no rule that says that that cottage, when you leave the front door, has to be a forest path. It could be the entrance to another memory palace. But then that wouldn't be a mega memory palace, that would be another memory palace, right? It's just the links. You're playing games with the links. Now, that creates cognitive load that you have to pay. It's a debt that you incur, but that debt is either big or small depending on your skills with the memory techniques. So keep that in mind. And I think I saw something from Michael Swain here. Michael, it's good to see you. It's been a while. It says here from Utah, USA, no longer Japan. Utah, I love Utah. I've been there to Salt Lake City, a really interesting place. Got memory palaces there, as a matter of fact. Good to see you here, and thanks for your email from the other day. I haven't answered it yet because it is going to take a bit of an answer, but it's my birthday too, and we are going for some birthday celebrations here in a little bit. But I appreciate that email. Really great questions, and you are definitely a star student in the magnetic memory method, and now branding new academy too, I think I saw. So that's awesome. And yeah, take your time. Michael says thank you. I try not to take my time. I like to get things done for you. Michael says happy birthday. Thank you very much. I always find birthdays odd. I always tease my mom. No, it's not my birthday. I was born February 27th, 1977, and every other time after that, time is not really a circle. It doesn't return to that same spot. It actually goes more like this and just keeps going. And for all eternity, it never returns. But obviously, we can honor these cyclical calendars that people have manufactured for whatever reason that they like to. Why not? Anyway, Kevin says, thank you for your time. Hope you have a nice day. And thank you, Kevin. Great questions about the cottage in the middle of nowhere. So, yes, you can use a cottage in the middle of nowhere and get great results. So, next, let's see. And let me know, do you enjoy this mailbag stuff? Because you don't have to do it. I really, oh, someone's booking a strategy session with me. Great. Okay, let's see. This is someone getting the course. So this is an interesting one. My biggest struggle right now is that I'm not able to fight and erase my mental fog. I want to take my memory to its full potential in order to learn as much as I can every single day, because there is so much to learn. That's from Amen. Great name, Amen. Yeah, so mental fog is interesting. It's something I've struggled with a lot in my life. And one of the things that I did, in addition to memory training actually helps with mental fog for a number of reasons. And one of them is that, you know, you have gray matter, white matter in your brain, and your brain's a muscle. That's not exactly the right term for it, but it's got blood vessels flowing through it, oxygen flows through it, and if you use it, just like, one of your muscles here, I go to the gym and it gets bigger and it feels better and it works better, able to lift more. Same thing with the brain. So when you use the memory techniques, you're actually exercising your brain and you feel a bit challenged, right? And that challenge is so healthy, so good for you. And so what you do is you make sure that you challenge yourself sufficiently, but that you don't frustrate yourself. And if you get frustrated, then you just scale back. But make sure that you don't scale back so much that it's so easy, because then you'll get bored. So I always have to do this. And when I start a new memory project, like with the current Freedom Journal thing, I have to do that too. It's like, I hit a frustration point, and be really cautious that I don't let that frustration point be the norm and frustrate me so much that I'm not having fun anymore. Scale back. There's no shame in it. There's no shame in being like, okay, well, 10 words is maybe just a little bit too much. And these are especially challenging words because they're now pushing outside of the frame where I'm at. So maybe I'll do 8 instead. Maybe it's 5, right? Just keep moving forward. Make sure you're challenged. But then don't do something lazy like, well, I'll do 1 a day. I mean, that's easy. But pushing. So finding that sweet spot. And the thing is with sweet spots, if you have 1 to 10, and one day the sweet spot will be 5, another day it might be 4, then another day it might be 8. So you're just constantly navigating. You're in the water, rowing your boat. The weather's different days. But if you don't keep rowing your boat, you'll never get to the destination. So you keep moving regardless of what's happening. Now, with the brain fog issue, just by keeping rowing your boat, you'll keep loose and limpid, everything will be warm and moving, and you'll be able to react and respond in correct ways with great, better performance than otherwise, but you still might have brain fog. So the weather, like today, would be a typical day where, I would say, yeah, I feel a little bit foggy because it's all gray and cloudy and not nice, and I wish it was better. But because of paying attention to sleep, paying attention to diet, paying attention to being hydrated, making sure I drink lots of water, and meditation and so forth, it really, really helps that. So on the birthday podcast that I just released, I talk about meditation and the exact meditation practice and how it works in combination with journaling and so forth. It's really important that they all work together. And what happens, and it's happening more and more to me, is just this cruising altitude and feeling better and better. Because I used to be on a day like this, I'd just be destroyed. And several years ago, I would just want to go and drink all day, drink beer. And even though memory techniques worked fine for me a couple years ago, they work a lot better without alcohol in my life. And I'm so glad that I just totally reduced alcohol. But that used to be my go-to technique. But there's a better foundational technique, way better. And that is daily meditation, daily attention to diet, daily attention to making sure you're hydrated, daily attention to make sure that, the lights, you're in bed at least by a certain time and the lights go off, and you just hit it as much as you can with as much consistency and discipline and regularity as possible. And what you'll find is that gets you way better stability and cruising altitude. And so now I'm actually astonished that it's happening for me, but now I don't get as foggy as I used to on gray weather days like this. It's just great. So I think anybody can do this. And so go listen to the new podcast for more details at magneticmarymethod.com, life-mistakes. And by the way, about this, one of the things that I'm talking about, I haven't finished the documentary yet, but we shot a little bit of a mini documentary, and I now can juggle and recite the alphabet backwards while I'm juggling, and I completed it, and so that's like 26 rotations while doing something else, and this is a way of destroying brain fog. Juggling itself is awesome. Now, but then juggling while doing something, and I'm doing juggling while singing and juggling while talking and practice. It's like dual path mental exercise, and I'm confident that for any human being who wants to give these things a try, it will help you fight and erase your mental fog. Really, you just got to do stuff and explore, find out what's right for you. But we're all humans, we all have brains, so the tendency would be that if that works for a lot of people, which it does, then it'll probably work for you too. So give those things a try, and I'm pretty sure you're going to find some really, really great results. Okay, so if you're hopping on this live, say hello, hit that thumbs up, let me know where you are in the world, and I'm doing a bit more mailbag here. Okay, so this one is from Mark. Oh, this is just a kind words. Adolfo's here. Hey, Adolfo, good to see you. We just sent this off to you. Thanks for ordering it, and let me know when it arrives. Thanks for being here. And yeah, I just got this email here from Mark who says, he says a bunch of other stuff. He says, I would just say how much I valued reading your emails, and not just the recent ones. I'm fairly ruthless with unsubscribing from mail, which serves no purpose, and only pay serious attention to Jay Abraham, Perry Marshall, Ben Settle's daily email, and anything that Andre Chaperon writes. In fact, your own way of constructing emails reminds me of Jay's concept of preeminence. Whoa, that's to be lumped in with some of those guys. That's high praise indeed. So thank you for that, Mark. I appreciate that. Whoa, those guys are some of my heroes. I've seen Jay Abraham actually speak from the stage. Really intense. But I've been an admirer of his emails, so it's nice to know that I get to keep being in your inbox and opened up. If you're not subscribed to my emails and you want to know what he's talking about, then the best way is to get started with the free course at magneticmarymethod.com/YT. And those emails are practice like anything, so I'll keep writing them. I have fun. Let me know if you have questions. If you're on this live, if you haven't said hello yet, say hello, hit the thumbs up, let me know where you are. Julie says, this memory study has ignited my brain. Suddenly I am wanting to study many topics. I've become very interested in the world of polyglots, how they see the world and what it takes to become one. Well, Julie, that's great. Let's riff on that for a bit, because polyglots, I talk about polyglotism a lot with my friend Ollie Richards, and language learning and so on. And I've got a podcast coming out on bilingualism and why bilingualism is so good for the brain, the health of the brain, why that it can lead, like some of the research around why that it leads for more, it ultimately creates kind of more intelligence, I guess, and there's kinds of intelligence, but there's also a point where it sometimes harms certain people, and at least that's what some of the research talks about, and it's quite interesting, actually. It's a quite interesting topic. I had a friend who was sure that the fact that she was raised bilingually damaged her IQ, and I always argued with her, but then some of the research, like, you can see why. Also, there's some research that actually children who are raised with too many languages can also get confused and frustrated. And it seems that they can handle 6 or 7, but after that, it can actually be recursive and create problems. In any case, how to become a polyglot and so forth, really, I think most people would agree that polyglots tend to focus on one language at a time and really give that language its due. And so that is a huge thing. They're very good at reading, writing, speaking, and listening in ways that serve memory, and then use memory to serve reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And they're very disciplined about it. They're very consistent. They're very regular. They each develop their own style of learning. They obviously these styles bridge together at some point, and they're points of connections. But they just become very good at self-analysis and understanding what works for them. And so when they come to the next language, they basically have a template that they can follow. So the vocabulary builder in the Magnetic Memory Method masterclass is not just my own sort of go-to, these are the words and phrases I want to nail as quickly as possible, but they're also from what I learned from having so many polyglot friends to guide me along the way and help inform those choices. And it really works. And then, of course, just I love to use memory techniques in a particular way that aids the process in terms of being able to look at a phrase and memorize it, just boom, and then instead of using the index cards over and over and over again, just revisiting it in the mind over and over again and speaking it. And in the case of Chinese, which is the most challenging thing I've ever done, there's this extra burden of really, really strict pronunciation. And so I'm still working on that. I don't think I'll be releasing any formal courses on Chinese until I figure out more about the pronunciation angle. But memorizing the tones is no problem. The problem is that the tones change depending where they are in the sentences. And then also you just have like the perennial sorts of issues where speaking and getting that practice in speaking can be a bit of a challenge. So I'm pretty fearless in just like talking to people. And I spoke with someone today, Chinese, on the street, and she was like, huh? Right? And then I just repeated myself. I don't get embarrassed or don't, boom, boom, boom. My days with that are over. But I just patiently repeated myself. And then she said, oh, now I understand what you're saying. But your English accent is so thick. So now, how do you deal with that? And the answer is, you just deal with it. You just keep practicing, and you figure it out, and you have more and more speaking experiences, and you self-study. And you might need to record yourself and so forth. I don't know how much that is actually helpful or worth the time in terms of just keep on speaking and listening to actual speech and just keep going. And one of the things that also is unique, I think, or at least particular to my experience in Chinese that I really haven't had before, is the sheer volume of regional differences. So, I'm basically being corrected for Beijinger accent because I live with a Beijinger. But I have no idea where this person is from. And a lot of the times you'll find that people don't understand what you're saying simply because they're not even remotely in that dialect. And you'll study some source material and they're using a different dialect and you'll bring that to a Beijinger. Never heard of it. Now that used to happen to me in Germany once in a while, but not nearly to the extreme, with Chinese. So, and it's also, I would hazard a guess that Chinese is just a lot older of a language than German, and certainly some of the cultural things. I'm not sure what word I'm looking for here. I got a little bit of ugly sister effect going on, but there's cultural things that are just maybe a heck of a lot deeper in the traditions, and then they're deeper in the regional nature of those traditions. So things to think about. Julie says, I'm bartering my accent reduction skills for one of the well-known polyglot language skills. Which magnetic memory videos should I look at besides the learning vocabulary course? Well, in the masterclass you have access to the Ultimate Language Learning Secret, and also there's a demonstration course there about memorizing the days of the week in any language to sort of show you how you can pick these mini missions. I don't mean for you to just say, oh, okay, the days of the week, but it's also about how to craft mini missions. So it could be the colors, it could be the seasons, it could be the months, it could be days of the week, whatever it is that you want to work on. You can make this little mini mission and make a memory palace just for that purpose and just drill it down. So there's that you can work on, and pretty easy and simple stuff. So if you haven't gone through that, check that out. And other than that, if you don't know the poetry course, that'll help you with memorizing entire phrases verbatim. And if you get to numbers, like one of the hardest languages for numbers, I think, is French. And so, being able to use the major method in combination with learning numbers in the different languages can be quite helpful. So check that out. Let me see here. Linda Martin's here. Hi, Linda. Oh, thank you for all your wonderful emojis. I love them as always. Someone asked, how do you learn 7 languages? The speaker said, learn 6 and add 1. Well, yeah, I think that's probably sage advice. And you know what? I think that we focus too much on how to learn a language. Like, everybody wants specifics about that, but there's a lot of just how to learn that we need to focus on as well. And part of it is making sure you actually want to learn that thing, right? So it's quite easy to get carried away with the fantasy of, like, I want to learn this language and so forth. Then you get into the reality of it, and then like, the honeymoon phase doesn't necessarily last that long. So the question is, how do you test that you even want to get married in the first place, knowing that you're going to spend some time together, right? And then after the honeymoon, some of those chemicals, the bonding chemicals, like in a marriage, 14 months you basically have, and then they say you better have kids so that you have those bonding chemicals again to last the next 14 months and so forth. This is also then a hypothesis kind of stuff, but I think there's a lot of truth to it. And it also helps if you're friends with the person that you decide to marry. But language learning, or learning anything, is like that. When I got into my PhD, I had a honeymoon period with it, and then we had to figure out how we were going to revive our little romance, my PhD and I. And we had to do it a few times to get through it. But you need to do that, and you need to have learning strategies and ways of getting through things. So knowing about learning as such, and knowing about you in that picture, is very important. That's why I talk so much about learning hierarchies in here, your sensory modalities in here, how to develop that all out. And I think you'll find it useful. Linda says, fascinating, love it. Thank you, Linda. I'm glad that you are enjoying this. Adolfo says, I've memorized the major system 00 to 99 recently using 4 memory palaces, but I'm having difficulty recalling the image of a number when I look at it on paper. I usually have to spend 10 seconds decoding. Okay, let me address that for you, Adolfo. Will it get easier over time with more usage of the major method? Yes, it will get easier over time. But let me say this first, Adolfo. 10 seconds is good. Many people need more than 10 seconds to decode. And perhaps, it's good to have KPIs. KPIs are key performance indicators, if you haven't heard that term before. And time is one of the key performance indicators. Other ones in the world of memory are not just time or speed, but also accuracy. And then there is depth of a recall, or the duration of recall. So those are the major three, and there may be more, such as combinations of information. So when you're memorizing phrases, right, a key performance indicator that you could use is, or phrases or long sequences of numbers, is how much exactly in that. Now this is sort of like accuracy, but it is also different because you have the the magnetic chaining of those different pieces together and which parts tend to fall away. So one of the exciting things to do with numbers or phrases in languages is to think about, okay, not just time, but accuracy, and also how much volume of information is another one, and how long, and then where in my chains are things breaking down? Are there any particular things that are breaking down? So think of all those things together, and then time may be the least important thing, because when you work on those other things, you're going to increase your time automatically. But again, I would start from the point of 10 seconds is actually really good, so you're doing very well. And if time is important, keep working on time, but understand that it's relative to these other issues, and all things will improve if you focus on all of those things. So if you want to send some numbers and your major method 00 to 99, then I'd be happy to look at it, and we can do that inside the Mastermind Facebook group where you're a member, and that would be great to do that. Maybe make a tailor-made video for you, or in the FAQ section in the masterclass, depending on the exact need of the tutorial. Happy to create that for you. But in general, one of the things to keep in mind too with 00 to 99 is that you don't have to have all of those characters be your final character. So you could change them. And I've talked a lot about the evolution of mine and over time, and it's important to let them evolve over time, and that will help you with your speed as well. But it will get easier and it will get faster, and Michael here has made some comments that probably will help. So Michael says, at Adolfo, I have found great success with taking a deck of cards, removing the face cards, and just practicing image recognition based on a number pair. Like, don't pay attention to the suit, a 4 and a 3, etc. And so a card pair would be, oh, so many comments are coming up here that I can't quite follow the thread. Thank you for your patience. So a card pair would be a 43. That can be an entertaining way for me, at least, to practice numbers while practicing card memorization and creating images and connections into memory files. That's a great idea, Michael, actually. And also, another thing that you can do is practice binaries. That it's along these lines, where you could do this with or without the face cards in there, but you can just memorize whether it's red or blacks, right? And there's only so many ways that the cards will configure themselves. So you can have black, 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 red, 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 black, red, black, red, black, and red, black, black, and black, black, red, and I think that's all of them. And what you can do is you can create a way of just remembering those orders and have words that help you remember what those orders are. So that's another sort of exercise. Now that's different than what you're asking, Adolfo, but it can lend its help to that, in the same way that Michael's suggestion will lend its help to that as well. The other thing that you can do that you might want to consider, and this is an exercise that I should add to the masterclass, actually, now that I think of it, but you could have index cards and have 00, 01, 02, 03, all the way up to 99 on different cards, and you can shuffle them. So what you'll end up with then is, like, as you go through the cards, and you can actually buy blank-faced decks, and they're from, like Bicycle will sell you decks of cards that have a blank face, and what you can do is get a Sharpie. Use a Sharpie, because otherwise they smudge or whatever, but a Sharpie, and then you just blow, and then it'll dry, and it'll be just like a great card, and you can draw the numbers on them. You could also get like stickers and put 01 on the card, and that will make them fatter though, so they won't shuffle quite the same, but that may not be an issue. In any case, imagine having a shuffled deck of 00 to 99, and then just practicing with those cards in random orders. Pick a quarter of the deck at a time, so 25 digits, right? 25 two-digit sets, which would essentially be 50 numbers, but it would be 25 images. And then, as Linda's suggesting, have it in a memory palace. Have all of this in a memory palace. So you could use I think you said 4 memory palaces that you had for this. You could use those memory palaces and go from there. So Adolfo, let me know if these suggestions from us are helping you and useful, and take action on them. Just for $1, you can get this and draw out all those numbers. I think I'm going to do that myself because I like it a lot. There's softwares too, but I think it's best to stay off the software if you can. And I think that'll really help improve your speed. But again, I would suggest thinking about the fullest range of KPIs and see how that they can all help increase your experience with this, as you have a range of key performance indicators. So Michael says good luck to Adolfo, and thanks Dr. Metivier. Thank you for being here, Michael. It's great seeing you. Always great. So let's jump back into Mailbag here for a second. Rahul says he is looking for better ways to optimize his learning, including learning things sticking long enough so I can innovate new things. Oh, Adolfo says, on my way to Walmart to buy index cards. Thanks for the great tips. You're welcome, and thank you for taking action. Remember, everybody, speed of implementation is really important. So when you hear a good idea, just go and implement right away, because you're much more likely to actually do it. We have, depends who you are, but between 12 and 24 hours. If you hear a good idea and you don't take action on it, then you're less likely to do it. So definitely great point, and I think you're going to get great results. I know you are. I'm confident you are. You're already getting great results, and again, 10 seconds is to be congratulated. For Rahul and his wish to have information stick long enough so that he can innovate on new things. Yeah, that's a great goal, and that's essentially what happens, because the more you have knowledge in your mind, the more you can innovate, and the more you'll have spontaneous eruptions of ideas. That's why I talk about the rhizomatic effect in the master plan part of the master class. Because a lot of knowledge is like top down, or like the tree and the roots and all that sort of stuff, but rhizomatic is more everything, boom, appearing spontaneously through these dense networks, and they don't necessarily need to be connected in order for some new thing to spontaneously innovate over here. So the more you read and the more you remember what you read, the more you're going to have these wonderful mixtures of ideas, and then these bulbs you'll just be like, wow, my creativity is over the top. Same thing with doing lots of memory palaces, lots of mind mapping, and all the things that just constantly feed your brain. And the more you feed yourself really good information, and you remember it, then you're going to process it in ways that you don't process information if you aren't using these techniques. So in the birthday podcast at magneticmemory-method.com/life-mistakes, we talk about the importance of this and how different things like journaling and meditation can help. And I just got a happy birthday email. That's great. Thank you. From Kevin, another Kevin. Great, thank you. Oh wow, 生日快乐. Thank you, 谢谢. Alles Gute zum Geburtstag. So hitting all the fun things. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so back to Mailbag. If you're hopping on live, hit that thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. Feliz cumpleaños. Cumpleaños. Great, thank you, Adolfo. That año, I always got to remember the enya there. I want to get back into Spanish one day. Usually if I spend, I want to get into Spanish, I want to learn Portuguese, I want to learn everything. Usually if I'm in Spain, within a couple of weeks, I can jam a little bit better. But I haven't been studying Spanish for a while. It's interesting because when you're not using the language, you do go through de-skilling, And it is that thing like, how do you become a polyglot? I always love listening to my friends talk about it and what that feeling is like to lose skill in a language. Like I'm having some de-skilling with German right now, um, which is a bit of a pain. But I have some strategies to keep up with my German, and it is a lot of fun to keep up with German. And one of the things is that, by the way, I should ask you, who reads German? Because we now have the first translation done completely, and so we want some beta readers who read German. Kunal's here. Good morning, Kunal. Good to meet with you. We want to have some people go through the 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 book and see how it works for German native speakers. It was translated by a German native, but and I can read German and it reads fine to me. But also, I'm not a native German speaker, so I don't know the extent to which that's going to work for others. But in any case, it's weird because your mouth loses it. Your mouth seems to lose it faster than the brain, and so it's the same thing. Speaking, reading, writing, listening. You've got to keep that totally in order. And then when you're not living in a country, like being out of Germany, you just don't see Germany. And the other side of that, though, is that I had experienced what I would call English de-skilling. I was really surprised that I had lost so much English. My vocabulary in English had really started to suffer, and I only really noticed it when I came to Australia. I was like starting to realize, oh, I can speak English so much better. And I listened to these old podcasts and videos, and I'm just like, man, my English vocabulary is suffering. So it's back to Julie's thing about polyglotism and so forth. There's a debt that a lot of people pay, and they do lose some of those fluencies, and so everybody has their own little story about what exactly the polyglot situation is for themselves. So now back to Mailbag. Chandramuli writes that he wants to help his 7-year-old daughter who's trying to learn a new language, and I'm going to use magnetic learning method and keep you posted. Well, excellent. That's about the right age to get started. I think around 10 is probably when things really settle in for that. At least that's in the experience that I've had so far with people learning memory techniques. 10, they seem to really take off, but 6, 7 should be okay. Let's see what else we have in the mailbox here. You can also pop in your questions if you have any. That would be great. So, I am 57 and I have 3 more years at the faculty to retain the financial advisor status. Since I do not write and haven't spoken English for a long time, there are bigger and bigger holes in my knowledge. Apropos what we were just talking about here, I have a lot of work and I need to learn quickly and efficiently. Well, yeah, and the way to do that is to find something you want to work on and use the memory techniques to help. So the more laser targeted you are at particular outcomes, the more that this is going to help you achieve them. And you're able to set proper goals and milestones between the goals. So to take the German de-skilling, if you wanted to come back to speed in any language that you had lost some traction in, and it just feels weird in your mouth and you're not pronouncing it properly anymore, and everything feels slow, you'd want to set a particular goal. Maybe it's going right back to the basics, and then milestones. So a goal might be being able to have a conversation about your work, and then you would go back and say, okay, so I need 10 phrases about my work, or 10 pieces of vocabulary, and then next milestone, another 10, next milestone, another 10, and then let's say it's 50, then you have that conversation. You don't worry about just how much of that you actually are going to use or retain and so forth, but you just get there. You keep moving towards it. And when you get there, you'll have accomplished a lot more than you think. But if you don't proceed at all, or you don't have the goal in the first place, how are you ever going to get there? So that's something that you might find useful. Julie says, I'm loving the Q&As, hope it becomes a regular thing. And it's dinner time in California. Thanks again. Thanks for being here, Julie. Have a great dinner, and we will see you the next time. Well, Sam says, good morning from Nepal. Nepal, I've always wanted to go there. Thanks for saying hello. Doing some mailbag. If you've got a question, let me know. Musam says, I memorized 200 digits in 5 minutes. Wow, congratulations. That's amazing. And what's your goal on that? Let us know. Adolfo here, if you scroll through the chat, you can hear some of, see what he was talking about with numbers. And go back and watch the replay, because we had one exercise in particular I think you're going to find really powerful and useful to get better potentially. As far as I know, it just came to my head, and as far as I know, it's never been in any memory training before. So give it a try. I know that Adolfo is going to do it and is going to get the tool needed to do it. So that's cool. Let me see. So here's one from Jacopo. German word memorization. I struggle with the fact that there are little comparable words to English, Italian, French that makes learning by similarity difficult. In high school, I did a crash course in phonetic and visual memorization aids, which I never used as I have a really good memory. The thing is, I now have to juggle time between family, work, training for my passion, which is climbing, etc. I am looking for structured and efficient approach for language learning. Great. Well, in terms of the cognates between German and English, and even, well, English and French and Italian and French, I mean, you got oodles of cognates. A lot of people don't think that German is as cognate heavy as, say, Spanish and English, but actually it's quite cognate heavy. But also, you're going to tap out cognates pretty fast, and people in the language that you're learning, they don't necessarily speak in cognates. They speak in German, for example. So what you want to do is learn that language and not rely on cognates, or rely on cognates for as brief a period of time as possible, and dive into what people actually use. Lisa's here. Hello, Lisa. Good to see you. Thanks for saying hello. If you're joining the live, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world. And so German has more cognates than I think a lot of people realize. But the thing with German that's so wonderful and makes it super easy compared to other languages is that it has what are called Trennbar, or Untrennbar. And so that's words that split apart. So you have ein, fair, zu, sehr, app. There's probably a bunch that aren't coming to mind at the moment. And they're super powerful when you know how to use bridging figures. And I love bridging figures, especially for German. But now you have that potential in any language, but especially in German. So, just a quick example, ein for Einstein for ein, and my friend Vera. Do you have a friend Vera? Get one for VER, for ver, or fair words. And the more concrete they are, the better they are, and the more powerful they are. But it's just a feature of German. So, and you'll find that many languages have these features, and so I wouldn't spend too much time on grammar, but looking at the structure, the deep structures of languages, which you only actually get through you actually get it very intuitively, very quickly if you use dictionaries. Dictionaries are super powerful, and also, this is not just myself, but Alex Mullen does this for Chinese as well. It's just like thinking about certain characteristics of the language, splitting things into categories and just nailing them, right? And from a memory perspective, hard memorization. A lot of people, they say, oh, well, language learning doesn't have to do with memorization, and hard memorization doesn't help with language learning. Nonsense. This is just utter nonsense. It's just, how are you doing it? What's your strategy for it? And are you doing it in a dedicated way that's actually going to get you the results? And that's the problem. So it's not that memorization doesn't work. All language learning is ultimately memorization. If you don't have it in memory, then you don't have it, period. So the question is just, how do you get it into memory? And true, there are multiple paths to getting it into memory, but it's all memorization. There's no getting around that. The thing is that some people just don't want to do what it takes to get memory techniques to work for them. In the same way that some people don't want to go and do what it takes to get muscles at a gym, or to get better cardio at a gym, or walking, you know? And what are we going to do about that? We do our best to inspire people, to encourage them to get in there. But it's not that, there's no question that learning language is about memorization. It absolutely is. And the more that you understand how your memory works and find your style, find what you want to do, what you enjoy, and really hammer on it and just get it done. Show up, do the work, be consistent about it. You're gonna have a great time out of it. So I hope that helps Jacopo with finding a structured and efficient approach for language learning. Basically, I would have a daily memorization ritual and follow it up with the other parts of language learning: reading, writing, speaking, and listening to serve memory, and use your memory to serve reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And you'll get much further, much faster on 15 to 30 minutes a day than you will once in a while, sort of, sometimes, right? And also be careful about structure, okay? A lot of people say, well, I need everything structured and so forth. The world is not structured. It just isn't. Life happens. Things happen in life. So you want to have as much structure as you possibly can and be consistent to it, but also be flexible. Like Bruce Lee said, be water, my friend. So if something happens on Monday and you get thrown off track, well, you know, like Bruce Lee says, with the water in the bowl metaphor, right? Like, you fit the form, and you have that structure, but when things tip things over, you return to that form. And so a lot of people, what happens is they get disrupted on Monday, and then they never get back on the horse until 3 months later. You've got to set structure up so that you're flexible enough that you actually, when you get sloshed around, you return to the form consistently enough that you show up to it again and again and again, so you get consistent progress over time. And that seems to be what's lacking. And also this idea, efficiency, that Jacopo has, structured and efficient approach. Well, language itself is not efficient. Languages are not efficient, right? Language is filled with redundancy. That's what it is. A lot of people say, oh, you're so wordy, and oh, you take an hour to say this, that, and the other thing, and blah, 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 blah. Well, that's the beauty of language. That's the beauty of discourse, the beauty of discussing things, the beauty of holding forth in a lecture. It's the beauty of long-form content on the internet. There's no point in complaining about it. Redundancy is what communication is, right? And so we enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, fine, go read a book. That's another form of language that's filled with all kinds of redundancy. Humans need frames. They need not so much structure as they need context. They need ways of feeling in from multiple perspectives in order to get anything. And so you need to have time. You just need to find teachers that you really, really like, and never expect efficiency out of it. What you expect is you finding what you need that's going to work, that you show up consistently enough to, in order to get results from, and understand that probably can never really be efficient, right? What it is it's consistent, and it's fun, and you stick with it, and it probably will have so much redundancy in it, but still work for you. So I think that quest for efficiency is kind of off somehow. It's maybe a false fantasy. We are not engines, you're not going to fine tune it. What you're going to do is you're going to show up consistently in a way that's fun, and you're going to look for the best for you that you actually show up for. And you'll probably find that there are wildly inefficient elements to it, but or maybe there's just some inefficiency, but it's the efficiency that's good for you. It's the inefficiency that's good for you, that's right for you. I'm not exactly explaining it the way that I want it to come out, but again, it is like an engine, actually. It's like a car, right? So you have things humming along, but you still have this oil, right? And it has to be changed. It gets dirty, and then it needs maintenance and so forth. So what I'm trying to say is that inefficiency is part of it. And sometimes you have things that just work, that are not particularly enjoyable because of their efficiency. They're enjoyable because they get you where you want to go. So Ray says, I believe what you're talking about should be the foundation of school. Well, thank you, Ray. Yeah, maybe. I mean, we must forgive schools for what they have become, or maybe always been, and where they will go in the future. And we have so much potential on the internet to find our own schools, build our own schools. And this comes back to this efficiency thing, right? Is that in some sense, listening to these long, hyper long podcasts and lectures and stuff, and there's so much good long form content, by one token, is the most inefficient thing in the world. Because, yeah, you can go watch a 3-minute video where some guy's like, hey guys, here's my top 5 tips for whatever. And then, yeah, boom, you got all the tips. But the problem is, it goes completely over your head, and you don't remember any of it, and you don't take any action on any of it. So who cares if it's an efficient 5-minute, 3-minute video full with these really amazing, brilliant tips? I'm talking about this problem in my podcast for today, which is my birthday podcast here, the 4.1 Painful Life Mistakes that were burned into my memory and how to avoid them. And one of them is this idea that anything on the internet is free, and part of it is this idea that, somehow you're going to get results from super short content. You're not. All you're going to do is actually have your attention span shortened and your brain, the actual chemistry of your brain, abused. We need time to sit down and listen a lot over extensive periods of time to knowledge. And you got to make your own education. Find your own education. Find the people that you actually enjoy listening to. Sit down and listen to them, and I do as well. I just binge on long form content, and I can't be bothered with this style of hey, 5 memory tips. I sometimes do it to experiment with on YouTube, but ultimately what ends up happening is that people don't really get the same results as they do from actual depth. And it's a sadness, it's a weird tension right now that more and more people, they're not completing courses, which I'm talking about on the podcast. And I have solutions for it, ideas for how to solve that. Even if you do need to be fully video course immersed, there's still solutions, and it's more developed in the podcast, not so much in the text on the page, so maybe go through both. But I practice what I preach in this case. Like, I booked a training that I'm going to myself in August, even though the training comes with video course, right? And I'm going to do both. But it's really, really important that even if the live training is just a repetition of the video course, it's absolutely essential and fundamental for unlocking brain chemicals and actually meeting human beings, right? So again, efficiency and redundancy are not at war with each other necessarily. Inefficiency is not necessarily a problem, and we need to really make sure that we have the proper balance. So, PM Kieran is here. Happy birthday, Anthony. He says, hey, PM, thanks for saying hello. If you're hopping on the live, make sure you've said hello. Hit the thumbs up button. And Adolfo says, Anthony, you are my memory yogi. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. But, let's be careful about that, though, because, like, guru, right, means the person who who helps you put light on darkness, brings light to darkness, but helps you do it, right? So the yogi or the guru or whoever is only so good as what you end up doing from that. And it's been true for me. Like, there's lots of teachers out there who are pretty good, but they never inspired me to do anything, right? And the ones who get you to do stuff, they're the light bringers. They're the destroyers of darkness through the student, right? So it's really, really important to reframe that. Now, of course, I appreciate the sentiment of what you're saying, but I just mean to say that you are the one to be honored for taking action, because that's what matters at the end of the day. That's how it spreads. That's how it gets passed forward. That's how the energy grows and grows, and the world gets changed. The world gets better. The world gets more profound and a better place to be and better to live in. Juan says, is it possible to use a birthday party-like schedule as a memory palace? Perhaps the video from the party. Please say more, Juan. I don't really understand. A birthday party-like schedule as a memory palace. I'm not sure what a birthday party-like schedule is. So please say more. We are going to wrap up here in about 10 minutes, so if you're able to do that, then that's great. If not, then post it in the mastermind area. Ray says, I understand English because it's useful, and as a child being taught memory palaces like a language, it would possibly bring humans to another level. Yeah, I think so. I mean, the whole thing is that even if you don't know it, you use memory palaces every day. It's just, do you use them strategically? Everybody uses memory palaces. Memory palace doesn't mean what it means, or what it seems to mean. It's just a fancy word for location-based mnemonic. Jaideep's here. Hello, Jaideep. Thanks for saying hello. If you're joining us, hit the thumbs up and say hello where you are in the world. Yeah, so, I mean, not to get too theoretical or anything like that, but I think it's important to understand that what we mean when we talk about memory palaces is it's a technique for using buildings based in a way that you're using your memory all the time anyway to assist you in your daily life. And it's a location-based mnemonic. Now, mnemonic, of course, mnemonics just means memory technique. And we have built into our genetics, into our brains, the use of space to remember things. Hungry, fridge, right? What is that? That's a location-based mnemonic. The fridge is a memory tool for remembering where the food is, just like the grocery store is a place of remembering where the food is. Now, there's a lot of economic things going on there, of course, and yada, 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 but at the end of the day, location is a tool of remembering where things are. And so the strategy that we're using is we already know those places, we remember them, so we don't have cognitive load about it. And if we structure our memory of those places to reduce the cognitive load of mentally navigating them, then we can actually place magnetic imagery in there. And the more we create the magnetic imagery intelligently and wisely and based on things that we already know, then we don't put cognitive load on ourselves. And this is really, really powerful. Because we just simply think, hey, what was happening in that corner? Boom, it comes back. This is a private practice, and you want to do it in such a way that you build up the fluency so that it just comes. And with practice, you'll be able to do it. And you'll be able to say things. And then you got, if it's language learning, you have the debt of figuring out how you're going to actually get your muscle memory in your mouth working, which is not necessarily an issue in mnemonics. It is for tones. You can use mnemonics to remember the tones, but you've got to keep moving forward and practicing and practicing. So Juan says, let's say that the party starts when the guests are coming, and that mental scene would be the first low key, singing the happy birthday song could be the second, and so on. Is it possible, and is it worth it? Well, Juan, it's a great idea. Just try it. See what happens. I think it's you're essentially just combining a location with the events that took place in the location, which is fine. I mean, I don't know the extent to which those events would have occurred in a linear enough fashion to be reliable. But by all means, give it a try. It sounds well worth it. But a lot of these things, if they don't pay off relatively quickly, and you don't have this like, eureka, this is the most amazing innovation in the world, then it's probably not going to pay off much longer than that, because you don't need an event in the memory palace. You just don't need it. So an example would be Huxley's in Berlin, where I've seen many concerts, and I've used it as a memory palace. I've seen Testament there, I've seen Megadeth there, I've seen Motorhead there, I've seen like all kinds of bands there. Now, what does it matter who that I saw there, right? And what does it matter who was by the t-shirt counter, who was behind the bar, and so forth? It's just a space. Now, that said, if I wanted to follow Lemmy around in Motorhead, or I wanted to think about, what's his name, Chuck Billy, I think, in the singer of Testament, if I wanted to follow them around, then it matters to a certain extent. But the point is that I only ever saw, in this case, Chuck Billy on the stage. But I would want to see him behind the bar and by the t-shirt rack, right? And so I don't need to have seen him there. And in fact, I could use Ozzy Osbourne, who I've never seen in Huxley's, right? And I can use all kinds of people who I've never seen in Huxley's. I can use people that will never be in Huxley's because they're dead, like Abraham Lincoln, never been to Huxley's, never will be, right? So I think that by locking it down to specific events, you're reducing the potential power, unless it's very powerful for you to use it that way. So you can do that. The other thing is I could have entire birthday parties take place inside of Huxley's that bridge with the actual place where the birthday parties took place. You know what I mean? So this is sort of more of an advanced concept, and it has to do with the Mega Memory Palace concept. But you can have little wormholes, let's call them, or portals between memory palaces. But the extent to which any of that is worth the cognitive load it places on you has a lot to do with where you are in your memory journey and what your outcome is and what you want to achieve. So there's a real difference between what you can do and what's going to get you your end result, and that has to do with where you are right now. And a lot of people, they want to do more advanced things before that they've done the groundwork with the basics, which is fine. That's normal. It's part of being human. But you also have to have respect for your limitations, and you need to work with where you're at with the challenge frustration curve, right? So make sure you're being challenged. If these things, these ideas that we're talking about will challenge you where you're at, great, do them. But if they're just going to frustrate you, go back to just being basically challenged and grow from there. So there's dozens upon dozens of things that I know you can do with memory techniques and memory palaces, but they just don't pay off in the end because they don't get the end result, and the basics just do wonders and still provide more than enough challenge to keep growing. So Juan, I hope that that answers your question. It was Juan, I believe. Yes. And if you have more to refine on there, please do. Adolfo says, I taught my 15-year-old how memory palaces work, and he created 8 memory palaces using his classrooms. He just used his history class memory palace to recall detailed info for his history test. He scored 92%. Oh, Adolfo, that's amazing. That's amazing. So if it's cool with you as the parent, send me his name and I'll address a postcard to him to congratulate him. I'd love to do that from here in Australia. And I think we have your correct address, as you just were sent the memory connection. And speaking of the memory connection, I see that Harvinder's here. Hello, Harvinder. Thanks for saying hello. Thanks for being here. If you're joining us live, hit the thumbs up. We're actually going to wrap up here, maybe a little bit more mailbag, or if you have any follow-up questions. It is my birthday, and I said I wasn't going to work afternoon. My wife really wants to take me out on the town and not work myself too much. It's not like I'm getting old or anything, is it? Let's see. This is from Marty, who says, the most frustrating thing at the moment is that I can't easily absorb the concept of the memory palace. I will study it a little and quietly assimilate it all, and that may help. It's a new idea for me, and it may take a while to get my head around it. I'm always in too much of a hurry, I guess. I'll get there eventually. Thank you. Well, yeah, I can understand that the concept of the memory palace can be a bit to absorb, but I'll send you this replay. Hopefully that explanation I just gave will make it clear. And studying a little is great, and quietly assimilate it all. I like that. Yeah, we assimilate things over time. Just to, this is not, even though I got the memory palace quite quickly and understood it and just was, wow, amazing, and a lot of people do. Not everybody does, and there's no shame in it. But I have my own topics that I don't get instantly. Like if you heard my interview with Jonathan Levy about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, which is on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast, you'll hear what a moron that I was, quote unquote, in terms of figuring this out, what the heck it is. And I totally misunderstood. Well, I didn't totally misunderstand it, but I misunderstood it in this one fundamental way that I was just like, oh wow, it took me that long to, as Marty's saying here, quietly assimilate it all. I love that. And but I wasn't so quiet in assimilating it all. I just shared with everybody. Oh, and I told Jonathan right on the show. Oh, here I thought it was about solving equations that would help us get to Mars or live in outer space. So it wasn't, and we all have that. And there's no shame in it. You just keep moving forward. Follow your bliss, as they say. And if you find a particular topic blissful, do it. Ray says, "Happy birthday!" Thank you, Ray. Harvinder says, many returns of the day. Thank you so much, Harvinder. Yeah, it's going to be great. I like getting older, actually. I've long wanted to be an old man, and I suppose that's going to come eventually here, sooner or later. super excited about it because, as Ray is saying here, it's all about perspectives. It is. And the older you get, the more perspectives you get. And I've just become quite comfortable and happy in some ways with being in my own skin, and certainly living the life of a mnemonist, practicing mnemonist, learning mnemonist, student of memory techniques along with you, because I think the only teachers worth learning from are students themselves, and learning from all of you. And that's why I like these mailbag sessions, because I learn more and more about what people want and need and what's frustrating them, and hopefully come up with some solutions that you can take action on. And we got oodles of them. To, if you're not going to be able to go and check out the replay, Harvinder, for Adolfo, we had an idea that came up. So just very briefly, for those of you who are working on numbers, that suggestion was, you can go back to the replay to check it out, but I just sort of came up with this on the fly, and I've never tried it before, but I know it's going to work just intuitively. But a number exercise would be to have your 0099 on cards, not the figures, not your magnetic images, but just literally 00 on this card, 01 on this card, 99 on this card, and then shuffle them up. And just like you would memorize cards, playing cards, you would memorize the two digits that come up. So it might be like 76 and then 22 and 03 and 45. And just like you would practice card memorization on playing cards, you would practice your 00 to 99 in endless orders, shuffling them up. So that hopefully will spare some of you going through the replay. I know that the replays are a little bit difficult to go through, but that's how that is. And I know sometimes people they leave frustrated complaints on the comments when they watch the replays that they spend an hour and so about talking about this and this, but that's what this is. It's hanging out with you guys, and it's just, that's the medium, and I love it for what it is. And I love watching replays of other people, but I understand that sometimes you got to scrub through them, and not everything's relevant, but you pick up some stuff. I don't understand why people complain about free at all. But in any case, Jaydeep says, how can I create a city of memory palaces? Well, basically, you have a city, go into the buildings, make memory palaces out of them. I don't know exactly what it is that you need the city for, I guess, so I need to hear more from you what it is that you are doing, and we could create something in the masterclass about that, or maybe do a podcast about it, but I need to know more about what you mean by city. But generally, if I wanted to create a city, I would learn as much about the city as I could, and if there's a street, I just start with a street. I've done this actually many times. Go into every building on the street that you have access for. Pick a street that has buildings that you can go into. Sometimes it's just the foyer of the apartment. Sometimes it's, just parts of a store or whatever, or the entrance of a shopping mall, and you don't want to use the whole shopping mall, but you just get familiar with each and every part and make little memory palaces of it. But a whole city, again, it's always this cognitive overwhelm rule and what it is that you're going to do. And that's ultimately, as PM Kiran is saying here, start with one brick at a time. Exactly. Although the thing is I would say, it's one brick at a time, but with an eye to assembling as many bricks as you can so that you actually have the feeling that you're building a wall. That's why the Magnetic Memory Method worksheets start with 26 memory palaces. And I thought, I should reduce it to 10, but the reality is that 26 is there for a reason, and it works. And it works for those who take up the mantle. And so I'm not going to change the nature of the game when actually it's just a matter of showing up to the game. And they don't change baseball just because some people can't play baseball. It just doesn't make sense, right? So why but you can just do 10 memory palaces at a time if that's more for you. And so that's sort of the answer there. But if you don't have those worksheets, go to magneticmemorymethod.com/YT. There's some videos for you, and I'd love for you to have them. Ray says, thank you for your contribution to existence. Well, thank you for your contribution also to this conversation. And this doesn't really happen without you guys. So thanks for being here. And one more email. This is from Monkey D. Dr. Metivier, I want to be a better person, and a great memory would help so I can be a better medical student and practice medicine better, and so I can also learn a language. It's like a dream to me. Well, Monkey D, that's great, and there's so much you can do with memory techniques to learn medicine better and faster, with greater depth and speed, and really, all you have to do is learn memory techniques. Memory techniques are very popular with the medical world and medical students, and there's a reason why, and that's because they work really well. And a reason on top of that reason is that the body is a memory palace already. So there you go. Jaideep says, I made a small city with 10 buildings. Okay, well, yeah, I need to know more about what you mean by the word city. That would be useful. So send me an email about that. And listen, guys, it's been great meeting with you today. Thank you for sharing this time with me. A great birthday present to have great questions and great people to talk to about the art and the science and the craft of memory and how you can use your memory to learn and remember whatever it is that you want. If you don't have that free course, go to magneticmemorymethod.com/YT. If you want the memory connection, you can read all about it over at magneticmemorymethod.com/connect. And we love sending it out to you all. April just got back from sending them there. If you missed previous lives and you like replays, I certainly do, you can get the one on FAST, you can get one on the name formula, you can get some information on the cave cog formula, you can get stuff on bots, and you can get stuff on all kinds of things. We've got the Peach Principle, we've got all kinds of things, and it is, not to mention the GAP Principle, and that'll be very helpful. And I should say that the special current offer for the master class that we've been running all month is running out, and that is at magneticmemorymethod.com, YTSO, which is YouTube special offer, and that is going to be closing very, very soon. So, my last bit of advice for y'all, if you are using memory techniques, is SIP, study, implement, and practice. Study, implement, practice. That is the path forward. This is a mental martial art, and all you need to do is show up in the dojo, go through the motions, direct your passion and your energy, or use your passion and your energy to direct your movements. There's a bit of flow, chi, and it really is just sort of a Zen archery. Bang, whoosh, bang. Here's your memory palace, the target. Here's your target information, which is the arrow. The bow is your strategy, your skill, and so is your ability to pull that arrow back properly, and you just knock it down. Bam! It goes into the memory palace, and it sticks there, and it's there for you when you need it. So, thanks everybody for sharing my birthday with me. Until we have a chance to speak again, come visit me at magneticmemorymethod.com. Gobble up that new podcast if you're into podcasts, and I'll be putting that link below after this replay renders. Well, maybe later actually, because it's birthday time. But thank you for being here. Until we have a chance to speak again, visit me at magneticmemorymethod.com. Remember, this is running out, YTSO, and talk to you soon. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Until we speak again, keep yourself magnetic. Bye-bye.